If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. I remember hearing this in a staff meeting in the late 90s, sitting in a hard plastic chair in our library. And a district specialist was training us on a new process for standardized testing in the coming spring. And I remember thinking, really? Just a few nights before, I think maybe actually the night before, I had led the entire student body in a vocal concert and a demonstration event for their parents and the community. And part of the concert involved candle lighting with the entire gym full of people singing together, kids and adults alike. And I saw a couple of students and many adults wipe away tears and nary an eye roll or crossed arm in sight. How do I measure that? Do I measure it with attendance numbers? Do I notate the volume of tears shed? Or is there like a calibration for hearts that grew 3 sizes that day? And in that library, the district specialist was peddling that lie that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And it circulated for more than half a century. And it's a story that I would bet real dollars you have to deal with every day in some way. And that story, along with a few others, are stealing your productivity, they're stealing your effectiveness, and ultimately, your joy. If you are new here, welcome to the Joyosity podcast. I'm so glad that you found your way to this corner of podcast internet land of leadership and life where we believe joy is an extra. It is the very center. I'm Jenn Whitmer, your host, international speaker, leadership consultant, author of the best-selling book Joyosity, and an all-around joy bringer. And if you're a regular, I'm so glad that you've tuned in. Welcome back. And as a reminder, around here, we aren't settling for toxic teams and constantly overwhelmed leaders or the exhaustion of everything just being too much. So in each episode, I'm bringing you stories and research and interviews and tools that you can use right away to create a thriving workplace and a life of joy that begins with you. You are part of a larger movement to create positive culture with complex people by cultivating joy wherever you are. So last week in episode 120, we talked about why identifying and living by your values is part of the path to joy. And today we are talking about stories and mindset. And we're going to take on the 5 overstories that hijack your values and ultimately your joy. So Malcolm Gladwell introduced in The Revenge of the Tipping Point the concept of an overstory as this powerful, often subconscious or unconscious dominant narrative or cultural story. And that dominant overstory shapes the way a society understands the world and then behaves. And these stories, if you allow these overstories to remain unexamined, they just continue to shape things. What's going to happen is that you will continue to wrestle with unnecessary shame, blame, guilt, and fear. And that will keep you trapped in cycles of overwork, overfunctioning, over-responsibility, and ultimately quiet resentment, stripped of your agency to build a meaningful life of joy. And if I'm going to be really spicy, I'm going to say, you'll keep sacrificing yourself for a system that does not care about you. So, in this new year, new opening way of being that we are exploring, we're going to name these overstories that block joy and actually prevent good work, and how you can change them so you can do something about them. So number 1, the first overstory we're going to tackle is the myth of measurement. And it sounds like the story that I told you at the top: if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. It also sounds like you have to prove the ROI, which ultimately turns into, I have to demonstrate my worth as a human to exist here. Now, measurements are important. I absolutely believe in them. They are just insufficient to live a life as a complex as a complex human in a world that is brittle, anxious, nonlinear, and incomprehensible at times. And we need something different. And we're going to talk later for each one of these. What are some of the different stories that you can exchange them for? But that one, the myth of measurement, comes up all the time. The second overstory is what I like to say is tradition, tradition. And this one sounds like this is the way we've always done it, or this is just the way it is. And it's such an old lie that this is not new to 21st century Western world. It is so old. There is a Latin phrase calling it a logical fallacy, argumentatum ad antiquatum, which means it's right because this is the way we've always done it. And do you see how that story, do you see how it keeps you stuck without any agency? There's no hope of change if this is the way we've always done it. And you think about if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. So this is the way we've always done it is part of keeping us hopeless and small. And I don't want that for you. And that's why it blocks your joy. The third overstory that I want you to recognize is work comes before play. And this one sounds like I can't relax until like this job is done. Taking a break means I'm lazy. I always have to have something to do. I'll rest when, fill in the blank. I achieve the goal. I get to this point, some other mythical place that doesn't really exist because someday and a day on the calendar. This overstory, work before play, pits internal biological needs against one another. We all have a drive to do meaningful, productive work, and we have a biological drive to rest and play. And so this story pits us against ourselves. And it's no wonder then we're exhausted as leaders. When you can only rest or play when work is finished, when is it enough? There is a never-ending scroll on our phones. There's a never-ending calendar. There's a never-ending to-do list. So if you have to wait till the end of something that doesn't end, you're never going to get to rest, and that will steal your joy. Number 4, it's not that bad. Everything's fine. And this one sounds like, I can take it, or other people have it harder, so I shouldn't complain. It's just a little bit more, just a couple more hours. I should just be glad I've got a job. Now, I told this story to myself a lot when I existed in a toxic work environment. And I kept telling myself, it's not that bad. We're still doing good things. And at the time, I didn't recognize how this particular story had hidden signs of a toxic work environment, saying one thing, but doing another. A growing lack of trust everywhere, lack of respect for boundaries, especially around the amount of work time that was expected, mission drift or scope creep. These are other words that we use for that. Improvements or requests for reasonable things that were shot down in favor of the broken status quo, kind of tied back to the tradition space. I got so accustomed to these not so obvious signs, I didn't bat an eye when blatant dysfunctional and toxic behaviors became the norm. Gaslighting, blame shifting, using shame as a motivator, siloing people, forbidding communication, saying one thing behind closed doors and another to the public, passive aggressive behavior, shirking responsibilities, and hard decisions. We've got, it's not that bad. And we've worked ourselves into 80% of American workers experiencing a toxic work environment. The narrative of it's not that bad has changed our expectations of what healthy workplace is. And we're idolizing these behaviors that we used to survive in intense moments, and they've now become the norm. Number 5, we're not worthy. And this one sounds like leave your humanity at the door and just do the job. Leave your feelings at the door, leave your family at the door. Just do the job. If you don't work for it, if I don't work for it, I don't deserve it. I have to put in my time of suffering first. I have to prove myself. The world doesn't owe me anything, including happiness. These stories make joy unattainable. We approach joy as if we got close to it, we believe we're not allowed to exist in a joyful place. And so, because of that, we don't see joy modeled either. So, we've got these double whammies happening. And I think mostly, besides not being trained and not being modeled, I think it's because we're afraid and unpracticed at joy. Anne Robertson says that joy isn't a beginner's virtue. It means it's not easy. It comes as a culmination. Joy isn't the opposite of sadness. The opposite of joy is fear. Joy is vulnerable. It's exposing. If you've ever been chastised by a teenager for expressing excitement that is beyond a slight nod of approval, you know the feeling. And philosophers Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Kelly write that joy makes you more intensely you. And that's why joy is exposing. And basically, we're afraid to be seen in case we're not worthy to exist. We've so internalized that story that we're afraid that we're not even worthy of joy. And from the research, joy appears to not only be the most connected human experience, and it provides the way that we cultivate not just a successful career, but a whole flourishing life. Now, when you're feeling tired and tense or just a little crispy around the edges right now, there's a good chance that one of these 5 stories is acting as an overstory in your life. It may even sound like responsibility, may sound professional or even noble, but they're exhausting and they're not neutral. They impact your results. Stories always impact your results. They're not just floating around in your head, they determine your actions, and those actions shape the outcomes. They shape how you respond to mistakes, what you praise, what you tolerate, what you model to other people. So if you want to shape outcomes first for yourself and then for others, you have to change your internal story for yourself in your own mind. Another time on another podcast, we'll talk about how you shape stories for your team and your culture. But today, it's for you first. And when we talk about new stories, you can't just say, don't think that anymore. You have to replace the story with something new. So, how do you replace the story? The good news is, again, you don't need to become someone entirely different. You don't need a new you. You don't need a dramatic overhaul or a personality transplant. You need 90 seconds, awareness, curiosity, and practice. So in Joyosity and in the Joyosity Works playbook, I go in depth on this process, and it's the story transformation process. It's called SNAP. Stop, notice, ask, pivot. Stop, notice, ask, and pivot. So when you stop, you are literally pausing. And if you do this and you practice it, this whole process usually takes less than 90 seconds. And you're just going to pause for a moment. Number 2, you're going to notice. And you're going to notice 2 things. One, what is happening around you? Just what is the situation? Who is there? What are you discussing? Just notice, like a court reporter without judgment or a CCTV camera that's recording something. Just observable facts. And number 2, you're going to notice how you feel. Then you're going to ask yourself these 3 questions. Number 1, what story am I believing right now? Number 2, is it true? And number 3, what could happen if I believed a different story? And this is where you get to start rewriting the story. If you believed a different story, another way to ask that is, what else could be true? How can I nudge this story in a different direction? And then you pivot. And the pivot is acting on the new story. You're going to act in the way that you have now decided the story lives. And we're not, again, going to overhaul something. You can, but it begins with small little nudges. And those small little nudges, I talk more about this in the book, will help you better than huge overhauls. You can get to the huge overhaul by taking small steps first. So instead of this is the way we've always done it, maybe try this is the way we did it since we changed it the last time. So maybe we can try something new. You don't have to always do it that way because you've changed it before. Instead of, I can't rest until the work is done, try rest is a part of being human and it allows me to work better. Instead of, I can handle a little bit more, it's fine. It's fine. Try, it's not fine. It's full. I don't need to carry more to be committed. Then I have to prove myself. Try instead, I don't prove myself by over functioning. My worth as a human isn't up for debate. So back to that library. And if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. The reality was testing was happening. We did need to measure some things. And I later, from that music teacher job, ended up becoming a director of assessment. I do believe measurement matters. But rather than sitting there and just believing if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, which turns into if you can't measure it, then it's not worth it. I changed the story to there are many ways that measurement helps, but there are many parts of educating humans that are beyond measurement. That made sense for me as an educator. In a leadership role for you as yourself, there's a different way to say it. Maybe there are many parts of leading humans that are beyond measurement. Can you see how that change not only changed my actions to understand what I did in the school, but also how that story can change your actions? It's not denial. It's not toxic positivity. It's growth mindset that gives you agency. It gives you agency in a world that is really bent on keeping you without agency. The system does not care about you, but you can change it. When you rewrite that story, not only are you cultivating joy, you're doing it by freeing up energy, you're inviting collaboration, you're increasing trust with this radical acceptance of reality that will help you experience more joy. Now, I got to put my coach hat on. So which one of these overstories is blocking your road to joy right now? The myth of measurement, tradition, it's the way we've always done it, work before play, it's not that bad, everything's fine, or number 5, we're not worthy. Which one of those do you need to go through snap, stop, notice, ask, pivot? In this new year, new opening to a truer story that you create that leads to more joy. That joy for you and for the others around you that actually creates better work. If you want to go deeper, this is a core part of Joyosity and the Joyosity Works playbooks, especially in the chapters on stories and self-leadership. And if something came up for you today that is like, ooh, that's a little tender, or I have issue with this, Jen, I would love to hear from you. You can DM me. You can send me an email, Jenn with 2 N's at jennwhitmer.com. I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram. That's where I play the most. And you can Jenn_Whitmer is where you can find me. And I'll put all the links in the show notes. I would love for you to continue this conversation with us by joining us next week. And we're going to talk about how your personality impacts the way that you lead and cultivate joy in this new opening way of being. And so I would love if you would share this episode with someone who needs the reminder that they have agency to cultivate joy and that joy is powerful as a leader. And if you'd rate this show, this episode, you will help others discover this corner of joy-centered, effective leadership and know that joy is an extra. It's not a perk. Joy is the way that we operate into resilience and the reason that we thrive.